get started.
It is 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, huh?
6 o'clock.
All right, so it is 6 o'clock, or it's 1:14 if you look up there. So we have a special guest tonight. We have Mr. Alex Musin, and he tells me he's in the 2nd grade at Liberty, and he's going to open our meeting for us. His mom is Tracy. Where'd she go? Right here. Oh, there she is over there. So, you know what to do now? Come on up here, right in there. You just have to call this meeting to order. Up nice and close.
I got this meeting to order.
Give it a
Let's get a
smack.
whack. That's by far the best one yet.
That's a whack.
That's the best one yet.
That is the best one. All righty. That's going to be tough to top. All righty, so we will do declaration of quorum, so we will see who's here. So call the roll.
Matthews,
Here.
Weaver,
Here.
Flood,
Here.
Bolt,
Here.
Rutherford,
Here.
Seahorn,
Here.
Salter.
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. Invocation. Do we have someone you want to do that? Yep. All right, Pastor Travis.
Father God, we thank you for today. We thank you for the amazing, beautiful weather that we've had, God, over the weekend, God, and for the rain. God, all the things that we need to make our city flourish and grow. Father, we thank you for the amazing women and men who work so hard to help this city be the best city that can be. Father, we thank you for the citizens who spend their lives here, God, who desire so much to raise the best family that they can raise, God. And I pray that the decisions we make tonight, God, that be exactly what happens, is they are able to raise the best citizens they can because of the amazing city that they live in. God, we love you and we praise you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thanks, Travis. And if you'll join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now we can
All right. Okay, item 1 is citizens' participation. So we will do, it's like we've always done, 3 minutes per person, 12 minutes per topic. You probably won't hear a response for us unless someone's got a question with some clarification. You may hear something at the end during commissioners' comments. So I have 2 folks that have signed up. First is Mr. John Bob Semple. So John, you're welcome to come up and address the commission. I think you've got some friends coming with you, it looks like.
Hello, Commissioners. I've got some folks that are joining me as well from the Planning Committee for Health Week. That's coming in just about a week. Come and join me here. Thank you so much. I'd like to just make an announcement and to share about the exciting things that we've got coming for us here in Shawnee for Avita's Health Week next week. This will read a whole lot like a proclamation because, Mr. Mayor, I want to be like you when I grow up, and so I'm going to try real hard here. Whereas the week of May 21st through the 27th is Avita's Foundation Health Week, which celebrates healthy fun and fitness activities for the whole family throughout our community. And whereas Avita's Foundation, its Health Week partners, Shawnee Parks and Recreation and Senior Recreation Center, Blue Zones Project, SSM Health, Shawnee YMCA, United Way of Potawatomi County, and Shawnee Youth Coalition are committed to improving the health and wellness and quality of life for the people of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, and its surrounding communities. And whereas our actions, including good nutrition and physical activity, impact the health and well-being of our families, our friends, and our neighbors. And whereas mental health is essential to everyone's overall health and well-being. Whereas eating more balanced meals and snacks can positively impact negative health outcomes for kids and their families. And whereas physical activity results in significant health benefits and improved quality of life in people of all ages. And whereas several organizations in our community have joined together to promote healthy habits and active lifestyles, we would like to invite everyone to participate in Avitas Foundation and its Health Week partners in Avitas Health Week next week. Everyone's not only invited to participate, if you work here, if you play here, if you call Shawnee either home or where you show up every day to invest your life, we want you to come out to Health Week 2021 next week and celebrate health and wellness in our community. Everyone that is here is a representative from the organizations putting it on. It'll be happening all over our community, and we would love for everyone to participate. So with that, Ms. Mayor and Commission, thank you very much for letting us make this announcement.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All righty. Second, we have Mr. Rob Morris. So, Rob, if you'd like to come forward and address the commission. There we go. Got a traffic jam. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. I just have two quick things. One for 6, 7, and 8, even if they're part of the comprehensive plan, and they may very well be, I didn't actually look back that far, but we should have a public hearing on some of those for the new film office and for the streetery, just in case the people in downtown have changed their mind over a couple of years if we haven't talked about it in that long. Secondly, I look forward to hearing about 113 South Philadelphia tonight. So with that, I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. And we did have one more at the end, Miss Cody, Teresa Cody, if you'd like to come forward and talk. How are you?
Just fine, thanks. I would just like to ask this evening that you guys consider letting us have a hall meeting with the downtown Main Street businesses. I'm getting all stuttery, I'm sorry.
You're okay. Take your time.
Let me start all over. That you'd like to consider that you let all the Main Street businesses get together and discuss the pros and cons with the city about the street eateries that they're talking about in this ordinance that they're wanting to pass tonight. I think it's kind of premature to pass something before we've had good discussion with the people that are involved, and I just really appreciate it if even Travis would work with us on that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, set that aside. All righty, so item 2 is consider approval of consent agenda. Gentlemen, is there anything that we wanted to pull out of consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item B, please.
Item B. So that would be the minutes, is that right, Dan?
Yeah, I wasn't
Okay.
here last meeting, so.
Okay, all righty, very good. Anybody got anything else? Nope, okay, seeing none, entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, pulling item B from the agenda.
All righty.
I'll second.
All righty, thank you, sir. So, Daniel and Bob. Okay, so we have a motion and a second for everything under 2 other than item B. So we'll call the question. And motion passes 7-0. All righty, that'll get us to 2B then. Any discussion on that point? I know just concerned
Just
about
wasn't here.
voting on it. And I'd like to make a motion on 2B.
I'll make a motion that we approve.
All righty, thank you, Travis.
Second.
And Darren. All righty, so we have a motion and a second on item 2B. We'll call the question. Motion passes 5 yes, 2 abstentions. All right, thank you very much. Item 3, we got presentation by Animal Control to present Pet of the Week. Now, I think I saw an animal out there. There we go, little bitty one. I was hoping it'd be the pig tonight.
This week, we have a kitten. Her name is Ruby. She's about 7 to 8 weeks old. Oh, there's something, sorry. So this week we have currently 14 cats, 13 dogs. We had 1 adoption of cats, 6 dogs adopted, and 9 reclaims since last commission meeting.
Really?
Good. That's good
Wow.
Okay, that's all we
Very
have.
nice.
for
Thank you so
All right,
much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. All right, item 4, we have Mayor's Proclamation for National Public Works Week, which I'm very happy to do, and I'll be Brad down front. Oh, go right by it.
You guys come on down.
Yeah, you guys come on up. Come on up, come on up. I look so excited. This is a good thing. All right, thank you guys very much. Anybody else? Okay. All righty, so we have a Mayor's Proclamation for National Public Works Week. Let me tell you, we couldn't get by without these guys. Whereas public work professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities, to the public health, high quality life, and well-being of the people of Shawnee, Oklahoma. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector, who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, waste, solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the city of Shawnee to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in the respective communities. And whereas the year 2021 marks the 61st annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, Ed Bolt, Mayor of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, do hereby designate the week May 16 through 22, 2021 as National Public Works Week. I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies in activities, events, and ceremonies designed to pay tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. So, there you go. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that you guys do. Brad, would you like to say a few words? These are the guys that are like putting our stuff back together when we were frozen and in our parks. Yep. And I mean, everything we've got that we depend on, and you guys have just been incredible. So you want to brag on your folks a little, or?
I think you've said it all, so.
Well, thank you so much. We appreciate all the hard work. Alrighty, item 5, discussion and consideration to enter a 4-year lease agreement for a case motor grader. And Brad, you're up again.
Yes, sir. So this request is to lease a case motor grader that would replace our currently inoperable 1988 Caterpillar grader we use primarily at the lake area.
Right.
If approved, we can have this within 2 weeks. which will allow us to address some of our roadways that have suffered with the recent weather. So it's a 48-month lease at 3.99% interest. It is a state bid item. They have a state contract, which saves us approximately 31% of the total purchase price.
I would happily like to make a motion to approve.
That was fast.
Sure was. Brad knows why.
I'll second.
There we go. All right, so Bob and Mark. Yeah, I don't think there's much discussion there, is there? So, all righty, motion and a second. We will call the question. And that passes 7-0. Very good. Item 6, discussion and consideration to establish the Shawnee Film and Music Office within the City of Shawnee Department of Tourism. So Stacy, I think I saw you. There you are.
Yes, sir. So when we talk about film and music in Oklahoma, that seems like it's pie in the sky, it's far away, and it's not happening here. But to put a few details in front of you, in 2019, 22 films were filmed in Oklahoma, resulting in $9.3 million spent here and $4.3 million in wages. In 2020, even with COVID, 35 movies were filmed in Oklahoma, including Minari, which was the first Oklahoma film to be nominated for an Oscar. So it's coming, it's here. We actually have 2 crews that we expect to be in the Shawnee area in June. What we are asking from you is to give us a few tools to, one, kind of put Shawnee towards the top of that list when they're looking at communities to film in, and 2, give us the resources to kind of track what they're doing and make sure that they're operating in a professional and safe manner for both their cast and crew and for the citizens of Shawnee. So the state, the Oklahoma Film and Music Office has created a certification called the Film Friendly Community. There's 3 pieces to that. One is designate a point of contact. That's what we're calling that Film and Music Office. Right now that's just a placeholder. There's no funds associated with that. But again, it just kind of puts our name towards the top of that list. The second part of that is to load 12 locations into their Oklahoma Film and Music database. We have done that. We are always looking for more, especially private property, your private home, your private ranch. If you're willing to have a film crew out there, I would love to talk to you about that, because we need all of those. The more we have, the more assets we can show. Again, the further up that list we go when they're looking at locations. The third part is establishing a permitting process. That is your next item on the agenda. And again, it's just they're having a conversation and saying, hey, we like what we saw in Shawnee, we want to come. And I can say, what are you doing? We had a film that looked at doing a car chase. That's a lot of wheels in motion for the city to plan on that and make it safe for everybody, both them and us. We had a film crew that's already shot a simulated bank robbery. We definitely wanted PD involved with that to know, hey, they really are not robbing that bank. It's okay. So that's what that permitting process, that registration process is, just giving us those tools to be able to ask all those questions and kind of lead them in a safer direction if we have to. So, what questions do you have?
Well, I know this is getting to be a big business in Oklahoma, and I think there's good opportunity. I know, like with just about any business, if you've got all the rules set up and they know how it's going to work, they're more likely to come do business with you. So
very similar communities. El Reno is landing big projects. Guthrie is getting big projects. You've probably seen Killers of the Flower Moon is shooting in Osage County. That's going to be a $200 million budget by the time they're done. They're building a whole train depot and just kind of bringing the whole downtown back to 1920, which is pretty amazing to see. So it's not pie in the sky and far away. It's happening to our friends and neighbors right now.
absolutely.
What's our any fiscal impact?
No fiscal impact.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Fiscal impact.
Oh, okay. Yeah. They generally bring an army when they come, so it's
They
not
do.
just the actors. It's,
Hopefully it'll be on the plus side.
yeah.
That's the goal.
I'll make a motion that we establish the commission.
I debate that because there's definitely a process you have to go through, under the FAA, and there's no reason to make that more difficult than it is, so.
It initiates the permitting procedures we already have in place for street closures
Sure.
and those kinds of things.
Yep.
So we're really not creating anything new other than an additional conversation with this piece of ordinance.
Well, and I'd say from talking to you and reading through that it safeguards our public, it safeguards the city, it safeguards those coming in to know specific, because these are things we followed that other communities have done. So we've been able to look at what works and what doesn't. And I think it's been very thorough and well put together.
Thank you. And just to make clear, my daughter's a YouTuber. She shoots video all over the place. Those folks, it doesn't have any impact in at all. Your friends and family videos, please do all those you want to. This doesn't impact any of that at all.
I think having all the rules set, I think, makes us a lot more attractive. It really does.
So, and that would be the third piece to that film-friendly certification as well. So we would be eligible for that and be on that list.
I'm ready to make a motion, we approve the ordinance.
Go for it, sir. All righty. So we have a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right, motion and a second. We will call the question.
Mr.
I'm sorry,
Mayor,
I'm sorry.
If you would,
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for grabbing me.
an ordinance relating to Shawnee Film and Music Office, amending Chapter 8 of the Shawnee Municipal Code by creating a new Article 10 of Chapter 8, providing for filming registration regulations, providing for repeal, providing for severability, providing for codification, and providing for emergency clause.
There you go. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
All righty, now we're ready to vote. And that motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All righty, so item 9, we have an administrative report from Planning Director.
Emergency clause.
Emergency clause, yeah, we do. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Sorry about that. So, okay, we need a motion for the emergency clause then.
So moved.
Thank you, sir. So, there. Glad you guys are keeping me honest tonight. All right, we have a motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. All right, we have a motion and a second for the emergency clause. And that passes 7-0. All right, now we move on.
Item 8.
8. Item 8, yes, discussion and consideration of streeteries guidelines, and that is Rebecca. There we go.
Good evening. So this goes with our resolution that was passed in 2018 for the parklets. This is simply the guidelines that dovetail into that resolution that was passed. Since the pandemic has hit, different communities across the country have found it successful to add outdoor dining to their restaurants or their cafes or coffee shops. This allows them to do this. A lot of people do not know that right outside Main Street's doorstep, the sidewalk plus the roadway is all actually city right-of-way. So technically, before this, we didn't have a way for them to utilize that space. These guidelines give them that flexibility as long as they maintain a 5-foot wide path, which is what ADA requires. Edmond and Oklahoma City have really taken off with this program. I believe Edmond, fall of last year, did a 90-day pilot program, and then they did a full-time establishment because it was so successful. So I think this just gives some parameters around how business owners can take care of that. Included at your seats, you'll also find a downtown parking map that I've included. And this really kind of puts into perspective how much parking we really have downtown. The parklet resolution talks about that could be on the sidewalk. It could also be between 1 and 3 parking spaces. And if you'll note on the parking study downtown, we have over 1,000 parking spaces. with 7th Street to the south. We have 10th Street to the north boundary, Beard to the west, and Minnesota to the east boundary. So we do have ample parking spaces. Staff has calculated 7 restaurants or coffee shops on Main Street, as well as 1 on Bell. So that would be like at the maximum 24 spaces, and that's taking into consideration that everyone would want to do it and everyone would want to use the max allowance versus the sidewalk. Staying and just kind of complemented what we're talking about this evening, but I'm happy to field any questions that you guys may have.
What's the number of total parking spaces downtown again? Over 1,000.
It's over 1,000, and give me a second because
problem,
I
no
believe
rush.
I wrote that down as well. Let me do some public math real quick.
Okay.
I've got these broken out on the sheet.
Well, I mean, that's well over 1,000, if I'm reading that right. 644 and 30 and 760 and 28. So it's over 13, and that's probably pushing 1,400, if I'm reading that right.
So my math comes out 1,562.
And the most potentially that if everybody did it all at the same time was only
24 spaces impacted,
spaces.
and that would be at a maximum. So they could use to not use parking stalls at all and just use the sidewalk in front of their front door so that people have that option. I do feel like we're finally seeing some hope and coming outside of the pandemic and the concerns there, but we're not in the clear yet. And there's studies on APA that show having outdoor seating has allowed restaurants to come back up to 87% of their revenues from pre-COVID dollar times. And so I think anything that we can do right now to support our local businesses, I think that that's important that we try to do these things.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think that statement leads me into where I'm going. We want to be able to support our local merchants, and we have one merchant in particular that has complained to you directly and to the mayor and many of us who has a very legitimate concern. He has Facet's Jewelers. There's a handicap spot directly in front, and there's an empty spot. Both of those are typically filled a lot, which we're not enforcing that. But then there's no parking spaces except for directly in front of the coffee shop, and then there's an empty building next door that doesn't have residents, and then there's a completely vacant lot. And I understand he had requested, and at one time you agreed to move that down to that location from where it adheres his public traffic. And he has elderly people that come in and actually use the store. Now I know there's others downtown that are opposed as well. This is the only specific individual I'm talking about now. That the park is nice. I like it. I've used it. The mayor likes to have meetings there. But it's not being public friendly. That you're saying you want to be friendly to the businesses. He's been here 40 years and he's complained, and it's caused massive conflict. And we have people that live in the residences that park on the street all day. We don't enforce it. We have people that back up in the parking places from the other. We don't enforce it. We have the handicap spot that is not enforced, and we have the marked off sign for the door to open from the handicap that we don't enforce. So until we take care of those businesses we say we want to protect, I'd hate to see us expand and say it's just 21 spots because they can park in any of these other 1,400. The convenience of parking in front of a store is one of the attractive natures we have in downtown Shawnee. It's just something that we've got that we don't want to take that away. We want to enhance it. And I don't think this is one person's taking advantage of this parklet. And my understanding is it's been 5 months since it's even been rented. I mean, is that right? We said at first it had to be rented and paid for, and it's been 5 months and it's just sat there, being asked to be moved.
Right. They did renew one time. I don't know what conversations took place in 2018 when this resolution passed. I was not here yet.
I wasn't either.
However, there were no logistics about whose job it was to move it. So was it the applicant's job? Was it the city's job? So those things we're trying to work out so it's a more fluid experience next time. I have talked to Mr. Williams and I am aware of that. This does not allow ADA spots to be taken up, which would be people with true mobility issues. Just as to put it into perspective, if you go 8 spots down, the 9th spot, south of Main Street on Broadway, so around the corner from the Nerf gun place and a Facets, if you go from the 8th spot to that door, it's 100 feet.
And people are still parking there that live in the residence. So those are occupied as well. Those are occupied. I've driven by. Listen, I'm very passionate on this issue and our people downtown. And I haven't just driven down the street one time. I've researched this. I've followed it. It's a pattern. And we have people that are parking in the street all day long that don't have those available for customers going in the door. And we have a lot of residential units that are starting to be downtown that people are parking there. And it's just a matter of fairness and talking to people. I think people on either side of a business ought to have an opportunity to have input as to whether or not it blocks off traffic that's going to be able to comfortably flow into their business. That just to me is a fairness issue.
So if you go to Homeland on Independence, and if
I'm
you
talking
are
about downtown, I understand. I know the mall and I know.
Bob, I'm putting it to scale just because it's a different environment. So we have downtown, we have 25-foot and 50-foot storefronts. It may seem like you're walking a long ways, but 8 spots back on the side street to go to a business fronting Main Street is the same as parking 4 spots back at Homeland on Independence.
I'm talking about an advantage of downtown Main Street. Talking about an advantage for downtown Main Street.
For specifically Main Street, because downtown has over 1,500 parking spaces.
Okay, we'll talk Broadway, we'll talk Beard, we'll talk them all. I'm talking about convenience of downtown, about downtown.
I think our downtown is successful. I think an indicator of that is when you don't get the VIP front parking spot. I think that means that we're doing very well.
Well, I hope I'm not the only one that disagrees with this approach, but I've said all I need to say. It's very clear how I feel, and I think we're just mistreating and we're not treating the people that you just said we really want to care about are the merchants. And I don't think we're showing that.
So we're not forcing them to do anything. I feel like this is giving them options and flexibility. They absolutely do not have to do this.
But it doesn't give the neighbors flexibility, the ones that don't benefit by that park.
So the resolution from 2018 requires permission from your 2 adjacent owners.
He did not have that permission. So where did that fall through?
No, he was not. So his neighbor was not the applicant. Main Street Gallery was the applicant. So they had to get whoever's on the east side of them and Coffee and Crafts. So his signature would not have been required on this particular application.
Okay, so where's the fairness in that when it affects his parking and his storefront?
I think that's perception of parking being affected. The ADA spots are not allowed to be used for this purpose.
They shouldn't be.
But we have ample parking as far as the downtown district is concerned.
Well, I disagree on this resolution, but we'll see if anybody else has any opinions.
And this isn't a new resolution.
I know
These
what
are
it
just
is.
guidelines
It's guidelines
to
that I don't
dovetail
like
with
the
the
guidelines.
2018 resolution.
All right, then I've expressed my opinion on the guidelines, and we'll let anyone else, if they have opinions, to discuss.
When we went into the parklets, and I voted for that resolution, and if I remember, a parklet was only to remain 3 months in one location. And I think that parklet that Commissioner Weaver's talking about has been there since November. And it needs to be moved unless they're paying for it.
So they did. They paid for an initial 90-day permit plus a 60-day extension. And we are logistically, so their time is up, but we're logistically trying to decide where we're going to store it. And then for this application and future ones, who would be responsible for moving. Both of those permits with the extension came with a $100 fee for them to be able to utilize that.
Mr. Commissioner, the policy on the parklets requires the permit holder to move that versus the city to move that.
Well, then, if he's not going to pay for it, he needs to be moving it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's been there too long and it's collecting trash around the corners of it and everything. And long before I got on the commission, and since I've been on the commission, all I have heard is we need to do everything we can to help the businesses downtown on Main Street. We spent $2 or $3 million widening, or not widening, but improving Main Street. Now we're wanting to fill up the parking places with these. Are they going to be permanent, these streeteries?
No, none of them are permanent.
Okay. Well, anyway, now we're filling all of those up with these streeteries. I think the commissioner mentioned, and I have also noticed, you can drive downtown, down Main Street, any time of the day, and there's the same 7, 8, 9, 10 cars and a pickup that are parked on Main Street. They're merchant.
Right.
And so that's taking what I refer to as the #1 parking space for a business. And there's a lot of wording on this that I really would like to see changed. The one paragraph that says bolting to the street is strongly discouraged, I think that needs to be changed to not permitted, because that's just the beginning of a pothole. Even though it's going to be fixed, we know how holes wash out, even if it is a parking place. Nobody's want to do that. And then says building permits may not be required. I want that changed to shall be required. They need to pay to have that there, and they need, if anybody builds a building in Shawnee, they have to do a permit.
Now, we do have the parklet permit, which would still be required.
Okay, well, it's in this resolution that was mentioned here, it doesn't say anything about building permit required. So it needs to be specified. We're talking about two separate things, parklets and streeteries. And again, this is another thing that was, personally, it was dropped on us on Friday night or early Saturday morning. We didn't really have time to talk to anybody. And I would like to defer this to the next meeting, to where we'll have time to talk with, and as Cody mentioned, talk with some of the businesses to find out if they are in fact for this. We just can't continue filling up parking places after we spent so much money to get people downtown. And so I guess I'm kind of like Commissioner Weaver. I'm a little concerned about it. And I think that's all I'm going to have to say about it right now.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
I have a question that doesn't have to do with parking. I kind of went to bat with Director DeBruin when I was on the Planning Commission and the initial parklet policy was passed. Because in that, it doesn't allow commerce to take place on the parklet. Do we have a mechanism that changes, like in other words, in the way he described it to me in the meeting, in which I told him these aren't going to be successful if we don't allow it, like a waitress could not take an order from a restaurant or the coffee shop on the parklet. They would have to go in to the restaurant or wherever to place the order. If we're doing streeteries that are, no, that was the interchange that we had in Planning Commission in 2018. Is our intent, or is there, I don't see a way that amends that in this, but if these are going to be, again, my point, notwithstanding in parking, whatever, my point is if we want them to be, if we're going to have them, we want them to be successful, we have to allow commerce to take place on those parklets or eateries, streeteries, whatever we're going to end up calling them. Is there a mechanism in this that changes that or amends it, or can we add that?
The guidelines do not touch the resolution, but I think that's something that could be discussed and that staff is open to.
I mean, that's just kind of my deal. If we're going to have them and we're going to hope they champion economic activity, we have to allow economic activity.
Yeah, I remember that conversation back in 2018, and that's something I didn't really agree with that part of it back then, because I agree with you, Daniel. I think I'd have.
I mean, it doesn't
allowed
make
folks
sense
to-
if you have a restaurant,
to do
that's a sit-down restaurant, say we have, which we have some of those on Main, and you've got to go in to order.
Right.
That's just.
I think the intention of that, if I remember right, and it's been, a little bit of time, was that the parka was supposed to be, intended for anybody in town to use. So whether you brought somebody from home or at another restaurant,
Sure.
or another location across town, that you wouldn't be tossed off the parklet because you brought it down there. It was something that.
And I think that could be so much as simple as an understanding with the user. Hey, if the mayor's having a meeting in the parklet and he's not ordering coffee, you can't throw him off, but it shouldn't prohibit someone from the coffee shop from saying, hey, would you like some coffee?
Oh, yeah.
And bringing it to you and bringing your
Absolutely.
bill. Like, I mean, if we're going to have them, do we have some issues to work out? Sure. Have they been successful in other communities? Sure. Then we need to figure out what needs to happen to make them successful in our community.
I guess, it'd probably be up to the business, but we want to make that available to them. But I think it would be up to the business, are they going to send, a wait person out there to ask, would you like a drink or something?
And I think that's my point. Right now, they're not allowed to.
And I agree. I personally would like to see that differently.
I agree with Daniel. When the parklets were passed, I think that was a start for this. But there was a lot of restrictions, and you couldn't sell food or drink or anything on those where
Or any signage or.
right. So with these, if we decide to do that, I think that needs to be included, that's possible. I mean, when I go downtown on Main Street, most of the time it's to eat, and it would be nice to.
Absolutely.
Other cities, you want to sit inside or outside. Well, I'm going to sit outside if I can. And I think that would be an attraction that's not going to cost us. It's just going to bring more people downtown. But we need to include that in there, or have those conversations that you can have wait staff out there. They can take your money out there. They can bring you your drink out there. If I want a Diet Mountain Dew, and then
There you
like,
go.
hey.
There you go.
So, and I know that was not part of the parklets.
Right.
And I don't see the change in here, so I would like to see some definition to that, or if that's possible, or if that's the intent, or if we can get there to make it fully functional.
Is there, I think these would be amazing, but also I think we ought to have as many of our downtown business owners have as much input as they can. I really do think that this would, I've seen these, I've eaten in these, and some of the most amazing memories that I've had as my family have been eating outside on an amazing, beautiful day and enjoying whatever local food or dessert or whatever. And I think this would be a fantastic thing to start walking towards. But I've heard enough people recently over through the same kind of conversations about feeling like we may be going a little bit too fast. And so if there was a way, a conscious way to ask some of our downtown business owners some input, and not just make it a free-for-all, because those are never good, but some way to allow them to state some of their fears, or to bring up some of their concerns, or asks one of their, say, man, I would really like it to look like this. Is there a way that we could possibly do that? I don't think we could do that in 2 weeks successfully, but I know that we want to get moving on this too. So that's kind of the catch. Do we, don't want to move too fast, but also want to give people enough opportunity to say, hey, this is what I would like to look like, or would we be able to do this? So, yeah.
I think I'd like to hear too, if from downtown businesses, if you're currently opposed to it, maybe you can think of a way to formulate this question. If you're opposed to it, what could get you to a yes? Like what are the things that, if you're opposed to it, what concessions, and understanding there may need to be give and take on both sides, the people that currently support it and whatever in its current form or even expanded, and those that are opposed to it. Because it's a challenging question. And I certainly think, if it's my understanding that we would have to amend the resolution anyway to allow commerce to happen, then perhaps we can take the next period, have those discussions, and come back with a comprehensive vote on guidelines and any changes we need in the policy. And we likely won't make everyone happy, but we can at least
Get closer, yeah.
at least, we can know what they disagree with, and if someone, why they still oppose it. And
I mean, it seems like the big issue that always comes up is the parking, and there is a lot more parking downtown than what people realize. I know when Mr. Williams contacted me, I went out there and took a look at his situation, and so I walked and counted every parking spot within 1 block of his front door, and I count 82 spots, and that's quite a few within a block. And I know it seems like we have a different mentality, as you brought up, just a few spots there at Homeland, which nobody has any objection to at all, versus I think we have that expectation that we park right out front of the door on Main Street. But our Main Street has definitely grown and prospered in the last 5-6 years, especially. It used to be you could get down there and you could park anywhere you wanted, and I think the expectation was if you didn't get right in front of the door, then that's not any good. That's not always going to be possible, especially if we're going to be successful. I know years ago when people might say, it's kind of in the heyday back then when it was real busy. Talking to my wife, who's lived here a lot longer than I have, I guess those back lots were used quite a bit more. And those of you that have lived here for a while probably remember that.
In the back.
But when I bought that fallen down building that I bought and put my photo studio in there for a while, we kind of joked that hopefully we can create a parking problem again down here, and I think we've somewhat been successful in doing that, which is a really good thing for our community. I think not the parking problem so much, but just being successful down there. And we've got a really cool downtown, and I can't help but feel there's probably a way we can work this out. But I'm sure 100% of the folks won't be 100% happy, but we'll bet we can come to some kind of a.
Can I ask another question? Daniel brought up a point that can a business expand into their alley if they're within their boundaries of their building without any additional regulations? Can they just expand? There's a lot of open areas where the buildings go back. Can they actually, without any extra approval other than building permits, can they expand their patio as if they would same thing as a parklet on the front?
So they could expand and, add a patio, pour concrete, get a permit for that. We would not allow them to block the alleyways because there are service vehicles and things that do access that way.
But within the confines of the
yes, of their lot, yes.
Okay. Well, I agree, Mr. Mayor, that I think it's a good concept, but I do like what the guys have said. If we could slow this down, we can move on it, try to get a little bit of cooperation. And I don't mean to be so passionate, but members, I believe in this. I believe in my constituents and the public. I believe in just trying to do what's right. And I feel like at least one person, there may be 10, there may be only 2, that feels that they're being wrong by the way we're moving this through. And I just like to see if we could slow it down, try to take time to make it where it's more compatible to everybody that's interested and involved. A lot of people aren't going to care. But those that do, let's hear from them.
And I would just add to that I've been addressed several times that I have thrown items on the agenda, and my items are submitted and processed on the same day as everyone else's. I am very open to having non-quorum meetings. I am very open if anyone has questions, or if we want to do workshops where we have discussion but no action on an item until the following meeting. So I am flexible and open, but I do feel that I'm the only one that has been addressed in that manner, and that is untrue.
So how do we police the 2-hour parking? I think that's comes down to the biggest problem is people parking there all day long. I presume we don't do anything
anymore, is it?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm just looking at this, shows 2-hour parking on the.
2-hour parking, I believe it's on.
Do we?
Yes, it is.
I would defer to the police department. They would be the enforcers of that. I'm not as familiar with those ordinance since we don't deal with them.
Which that would ease 90% of the problem right there if you were parked there, if you were doing business there instead of parking.
Right.
If people are, which I didn't realize you could live in commercial property.
Yes, you can live, just not on the ground level floor. There's a lot of second floor apartments above businesses.
I didn't realize you could even do that.
And I think, didn't we modify that a year or two back, where like the back 50% or something, I think, but it was a case-by-case basis on that. So, I mean, that is possible. They can live down there. There's a number
But
of
if they're
folks
parking
that
out
live down
front instead of around back
Right.
on the side. I mean, you know, the parking needs to be used for patrons,
Customers.
not
Yeah.
somebody that's.
It's an interesting question. One, we might need to invest in signage on 2-hour parking because, I mean, I assume if you own the business and you park in front of your own business, you might get a ticket every day.
Yeah.
That's a
I mean,
possibility.
Which would discourage you from parking there.
But I mean,
Yeah,
part of the issue is we have
Been there, done that.
Business owners that have.
business owners that take their own prime parking.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a challenge.
Yeah, it is.
Well, and that's part of Main Street that, I mean, to where everybody else has had to have so many parking places per square foot of building. You know, when you build a building, you have to create your parking.
But if we invest in signs, we can't just, I mean, we need to enforce it too. I mean,
Well,
that's
exactly.
the other.
Or, you know, or
other
you
side
put
of that.
meters back on the streets like we had years ago.
Yeah.
It is a uniquely Midwestern small community issue of free parking.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know really anywhere else where you can park free.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's how you police it, is meters. I mean, it's the easiest way. And I'm not advocating for those other than,
It's a way.
I mean, you can't park downtown Oklahoma City
Without
for free.
I worked down there 30 years, I promise you, you can't.
I mean, I took my family to Durango, Colorado, and I was 3 minutes over because cashier took a while, and I got a $14 ticket.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we don't seem to be a very good community of following handicap spots. And I look at stickers a lot, and I see a lot of places that don't have placards that are parked in handicap spots. And that's probably happens everywhere, but you know, if you don't enforce it, it's kind of hard to stop it. But
I mean, that's just the discussion we'll have to have, how we would do that, because Chief's only got so many guys, and if you want them up chasing someone dangerous or writing parking tickets, that's an easy choice.
Yeah, I'd go to meters real fast. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So would deferring or tabling be the appropriate motion to continue this conversation at a later date?
Motion to defer to a future meeting.
I'm going to make a motion to defer to a future meeting.
I'll second.
Let's see, that was, where was that second? Is it Dan? All right, thank you, sir. Okay, so we have on item 8 a motion to defer to a future meeting. All righty, so we have a motion and a second. There we go. All right, motion passes 7-0, so we will continue that discussion. Item 9, we have an administrative report from Planning Director Rebecca Blaine on 113 South Philadelphia Avenue. you're up again.
Yes. So I believe that we had a citizen question if the wrong structure on this particular parcel was torn down. Let me give you a little bit of history of this parcel. There are 3 separate structures that were on this parcel. In present time, one has been demolished. So at the time, there was a shop building, a commercial business, and a single-family residence. There are 2 different types of addresses. There is the land use address, which is the 113 South Philadelphia, and then there are addresses that you can request through the United States Postal Service, which are for mailing purposes only. And my assumption, not knowing the particular history of this parcel, is that he wanted to keep his commercial mail and his personal mail separate. Therefore, he had 113 and 113 and a half. It's not best addressing practice to do half addresses. We don't do that anymore. I don't think that USPS does either. And so I believe that's where some of the confusion may have come in regarding that. There were also questions about the property owner. And under Article 7, Dilapidated Buildings, Section 7, 581, we rely on the current tax rolls at the county treasurer's office to determine who the property owner is. At that time, we send them a written notice. Then we also have, if there is no communication or response from the property owner, we will set a public hearing, which they come in person to and have the opportunity to let us know what their future plans are for the property, if any, and then we kind of make the decision to work with them on a game plan of rehabbing the property, or we as the city decide to use some of our demolition budget to take the property down. I have in our records that there were no communications received back from the property owner. So when that happens, due to state statute and what they've laid out as far as timeframes, we proceed with that process. So that building did come down. I believe that the roof was severely damaged. There was a lot of water getting in the structure, and out of the 3, that building was in the worst condition of the 3.
Okay, if I could ask a question. I wasn't concerned about who owned it or how it happened. I was just trying to get a question addressed that was asked from the public. But in researching it, like I know all of us have, there's the 3rd building that's there now that sits. It's the green building that has power to it, but apparently no water and sewer, and it's occupied. Please discuss with me the legality of that. I noticed the other day the doors were open and there were 5 or 6 people that were using the park as if that was the front yard of that park, of that property. So since that's part of this parcel, could you explain why we're allowing that and what the situation is with that 3rd building?
Sure. So I actually participated in our homeless count a couple weeks ago. I met the people that are living in that building, but alarmingly, I met a lot of other homeless individuals that are living in either dilapidated homes or commercial structures. It's not that the city is, I would say, per se, letting them live there. They shouldn't be there, but obviously they have seen that as their best option. Our demo budget that we have is very, very limited. It got increased from the first year I was here, which it was $50,000, to $75,000, which is this year. The average home, not commercial properties, because we can't afford those, and the environmental testing, the average home costs between $600 and $7,500 to demolish. So we have wonderful staff that work through the process and suggestions or budget amendments that you guys may have.
Well, my question is not that it be demolished, but that it be unoccupied, because I know it's a health and safety issue, and we have them around town. We're aware of it, and we're not addressing it, and that's my concern.
I'm afraid that, and I know we have a new homeless program coordinator, and I think she's doing wonderful things, but I think that we failed our homeless population as a community, and we haven't given them resources. And so they're left to go to these, dilapidated or vacant structures or homes. And you can talk to my code enforcement officers. They re-secure these every week, but they get broken back into every week because they have no other place to go. So I really think it's part of a larger conversation and a larger problem.
So we're condoning it then?
Mr. Commissioner.
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, then I'll.
It boils down to just limitation of resources more than anything.
But I mean, when we can isolate one and we see it every day and we have numerous complaints, it seems like that's when we get them addressed, when we call it in and say this is a problem.
And that one has been reported.
I know, but it hasn't been addressed. That's my concern. I know it has been reported.
I think this will piggyback on for the city attorney. Can you help us understand and maybe help our community understand the process that has to happen for the city to move on a privately owned building to displace people that are non-addressed currently? I mean, I understand I don't disagree with you. The process is more complicated, as I understand it, than, hey, get out.
Well, as far as people who are occupying those locations that shouldn't be, which is what Commissioner Weaver was specifically mentioning. Normally what happens is whenever there are not utilities and you're dealing with dilapidated properties, those are posted illegal to occupy. They are secured. By ordinance, which we have in place, they are only allowed the owner is only allowed within the residence to either remove things or to make specific improvements during daylight hours, okay? So if anyone is at those locations in any other time frame or for any other purpose, they can be cited for that. And I can tell you, as city attorney, I have signed off on and endorsed citations for that. However, I do think it is probably a limitation of resources issue because we do have such a high homeless population. These people are in these properties, not just there, but all over the city constantly. It is an ongoing issue, and so I think a lot of times they may be diverted to, do we address these people who are at least being peaceful, or do we address the ones who also have warrants and who are engaging in other criminal behaviors at the same time? And so a lot of times they're dealing with multiple issues at once whenever we're dealing with those scenarios where they're in those illegal to occupy locations. But they can and are cited. That is something that I do see, but I just don't know that we have enough resources to devote as much time perhaps as we need to be to that.
Follow up on that. If they are cited, right?
Yes.
They have no means to pay their citation. They return to not any of them. Then our only option is arrest.
Well,
because they'll have a warrant.
Yes and no.
Okay.
We had a pretty vibrant community service program prior to COVID. Obviously, that was kind of halted because those community partners who help us with that programming had to stop those programs during that time period.
Right.
My understanding from the court clerk, actually this morning we had a conversation about it. My understanding is that is going to be reopened in the very near future, because we actually do take into consideration that, and we are required to under the law, that we are not creating that situation where it's just a perpetual, they can't afford to pay, they're arrested, then they get additional fines, and then are let out only to be arrested again because they can't pay, which is what you're talking about, is that cyclical issue. We have had judges that have utilized that, and a lot of citizens that have utilized that, I think very, very successfully, and it's been good. But like I said, that was temporarily halted during the COVID crisis, and we are looking forward to having that restarted here very, very shortly. So that's an option, and the city also benefits, I might add, because through that program, one of our best partners is allowing people to work at the Expo Center, which is a benefit to the city. It benefits them because they're able to work off their fines and costs through that mechanism, and it just is great for everyone. I think it's a wonderful
And as
alternative.
someone whose organization participates, it's a wonderful
Yes.
program for both parties, typically. Unfortunately, some people choose not to do either, pay or do the program, and then that puts the city in a tough spot.
That's correct.
And I'm not disagreeing with you at all.
I'm sure. I know. I was curious. You're
It's
city
ju-
manager.
it's just really challenging.
Sure.
Yeah. No, go,
Well, you were going to say something?
No.
Okay, he said it, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know that's the, just the one that's being discussed, but there's multiple of those, around town. And,
Yeah.
and if you happen to, your life kind of revolves around that area, then obviously and naturally, that's going to be the one that's going to be the hot spot. But I get contacted fairly often about, well, there's a, dilapidated home that people are in and out of there, and I know they're staying there. And I mean, sadly, it's a long.
But I thought that was what our procedure was. We've been told with code enforcement, we don't just go out and find violations, we wait for them to be reported. And I'm an action-centered caller, and I call in a lot, and that's the way that it gets action. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
they say, unless you call it. So it just seems like I brought a house next door to a rent property of mine that is constant. And I'm aware of it because I'm there almost daily. But then this is one that's not just me complaining about it, it's multiple people who have now been engaged in this discussion of this parcel of property. So anyway.
Not an easy answer.
Maybe a procedural question. When we take down a structure, talk about that, because then we file a lien, correct?
That's correct.
So if it's ever sold, that lien has to be cleared.
That's correct, yes. So if the city has to pay for the demolition, we take that from the demolition company and we file a lien in that amount plus the filing charges that we are charged to that property. That makes it to where they cannot sell that property or transfer hands until those are paid in full. And meanwhile, if they do not pay them, there is an interest that accrues on that, from my understanding.
Any other questions?
I
Explain what we have.
I just was going to make a comment about the also being an individual that went on the I guess adventure is what we would call it, trying to contact and humanize the people staying in these abandoned buildings and creeks and washouts, and there were several folks that I know in different ways, but did not realize is that was what they called home in that moment. And it's I agree, sir, that those things are a risk, and that there are so many things that could go wrong and people could get hurt, and they're stinky and a mess and all the things. But at the same time, there's those individuals that are there. It's not just to go in and sweep them out, kind of thing. And I'm thankful for what we're doing, and I know that we're moving the right direction based on some of these conversations. It's just going to be. It took us a long time to get here, and it's going to take us a minute to get back. And I think that continuing to have these tough conversations like we are tonight are important, and raising that standard all the way across the city for doing the best we can. And so I think we're trying to do that. I just think that it just, unfortunately, when you see something that blatant, it's hard.
It's hard to turn your head.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so I think that I'm not saying that we do that. I'm just saying that these are folks that are sons and daughters and moms and brothers and uncles, and just it's hard just to come with a one size fits all thing like this. But I'm not saying we have that, but I'm saying we're walking that direction, and I think if we're patient, I really do think that the things that our new homeless commission and individuals that are actively trying to work towards that can make a difference and can really begin to make it better for all of us. So I mean, it's just a tough thing to tackle. So yeah.
I agree. I mean, I think we're going about it the right way finally, and I'm confident it'll make a difference. And I know, that's a tough situation that was brought up tonight. I mean, I don't think anybody likes it or likes the looks of it.
I'd just like to see consistency of rules, laws, and ordinances. And that's the reason we have them, for protecting of our citizens. So I think that's the bottom line of where I'm trying to go with this.
I agree.
Oh, man. Anybody got anything else? No? All righty. Thank you, ma'am. Okay, so we are up to item 10. Discussion, consideration, and possible action of an appeal of an administrative order regarding the demolition of a residential structure located at 420 West Forest Drive. This was deferred from the April 19, 2021 City Commission meeting, and I believe our city attorney is some notes, or maybe
yes. No, actually, Commissioners, this was, as you mentioned, deferred from a previous meeting, and Attorney Matt Hawkins had represented the homeowner and had just wanted to let everyone know that the permits were pulled for the demolition today, and demolition is scheduled to take place as soon as possible. My understanding is that they are waiting only for all the utilities to be shut off so that that can occur safely. And so we are considering this matter settled. As soon as those are demolished, that'll be confirmed, and then we will be done with that matter.
Okay. Very good. Any discussion or questions on this item?
We have recommendation from staff.
Do we have a
Yes, we would rather them pay to demolish than use part of our budget. So we are supportive of them moving forward. Yes.
Good.
Do we need any action on these items then?
No.
So no, we don't need to take any action on item 10 then.
I would just ask that they would be 10 and 11 be deferred to a later meeting, so that when they have completed that, we can bring that update back to you all, since it was part of the appeal.
Right. So remember, these are just right next to
Yes,
one another.
and that report is the same.
Right.
For item number 11, both addresses were included in that.
Can we motion both at once, or do we need to do separate?
Or do we even need to?
Probably better to do them separate.
I'll make a motion,
in
we
case.
defer item 10 to a future meeting.
I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion on item 10 to defer to a future meeting. Okay, motion and a second, so we'll call the question. And that passes 7-0, so we're up to item 11.
I move to defer item 11 to a future meeting.
Second.
We'll just reverse it, Darren and Daniel. All righty, so we'll call the question. And that passes 7-0, so we're up to item 12. Discussion and consideration of an ordinance amending the boundaries of the city of Shawnee by de-annexing, de-attaching certain property within the city of Shawnee, Pottawatomie County, and declaring an emergency. So, Mr. Allison, I believe, or Ms. Blaine.
I'll take this one.
There we go.
And then I'll be done.
All right.
On this one, we do have part of city code that says that if we have not been able to provide city services to you within 10 years or 120 months, that you do have the flexibility to file for de-annexation. This particular parcel was annexed in 1962. So I would say that we have been well over the 10-year mark. Internal departments have evaluated the proximity of this property to where we have existing infrastructure, and unfortunately it makes no sense at this time for us to spend those resources to try to connect them. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Gentlemen, you have any questions?
properties out by the lake?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And a recommendation from staff would be to
Yes.
de-annex.
Staff would recommend that we de-annex this property. We do not have an efficient and adequate way to serve them.
Okey-doke.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. Thank you, sir. Let's see. All right, we have a motion and a second to follow staff recommendation to de-annex the property, and we will call the question. And that passes 7-0. So we are now to item 13, discussion and consideration of a contract with CEC Corporation for Phase 2 bridge and roadway design and construction plans for East Main Street over Shawnee Creek. And
Mayor
Mr.
Bolt,
Barkheim.
we do need to read the
Oh,
ordinance and the
I'm
emergency
sorry.
clause.
I'm sorry. I jumped all ahead of you there.
Brandy's turn.
Brandy's
Yes.
turn.
To read the ordinance
The
title.
ordinance, yes, ma'am.
An ordinance amending the boundaries of the city of Shawnee, Oklahoma by de-annexing, detaching certain property within the city of Shawnee, Potawatomi County, and declaring an emergency.
All righty, so we need a motion for the emergency clause if the vote still holds, even though you didn't write the, or read the.
I'll make a motion for emergency.
All righty, so Dan, do
They did not.
we did, but we maybe shouldn't have, so do we need to vote again?
Would you please?
Okay, be
Yes.
happy to do that.
Please do.
All righty, I apologize. So we will call the question again for item 12, now that I've allowed the city attorney to read for us. And then vote is 7-0 in favor. All right, so now we were, I heard that down there. So now we will vote on the emergency clause.
I make a motion, we add emergency clause.
Thank you, sir. So we have a motion for the emergency clause, Mark. All righty, thank you. All righty, so we will call the question of the emergency clause. And emergency clause passes 7-0. There we go. So, item 13, discussion and consideration of a contract with CEC Corporation for Phase 2 bridge and roadway design and construction plans for East Main Street over Shawnee Creek. So now, Mr. Barkheimer.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners. So, as you guys may already know, every 2 years, every bridge in the city's inventory is inspected by a third-party inspector. So, for the last couple of cycles, CED number 4 or Circuit Engineering District number 4 has done our bridge inspections. And 2020 was an inspection year for us. So during that inspection cycle, the Main Street Bridge over Shawnee Creek at Tucker Street received a substandard report. So with that, I spoke with the city manager and we had a hydraulic and engineering report put together for the eventual replacement of that bridge. The bridge is initially installed in 1930, so it's considerably past its service life, and it's currently load rated at 10 tons. The CED4 has been doing inspections on the bridge every 6 months for some time now, and it's staff's recommendation to replace the bridge as soon as practical for the city. So in line with that, I've had CEC put together a scope and fee contract to do full design on a bridge replacement project. That scope includes all known design services necessary to complete the bridge replacement, and their proposed contract is $177,362. And with that, I will take any questions that you guys might have.
What's the time to completion?
So that's a two-part question. The design anticipated is as outlined as 32 weeks from the time from notice to proceed. So at 32 weeks, we would start the bidding process roughly. That's going to be looking at a month and a half there. And then construction timeline is between 180 and 220 days. So all in total, you're looking at 65 weeks from notice to proceed to the bridge being open.
Okay.
So 5 years.
So that 10-ton limit would include some of our fire apparatus.
Correct. Yeah.
So they would have to detour around.
Mr. Commissioner, they've already been asked to detour for quite some time now.
Yes.
So 65 weeks, that's what you said, total?
Yeah.
Norm.
That's a
what we'd
rough, that's a
expect.
rough. I mean, 32. The time frame they give is 32 weeks.
Right.
That has some assumptions built in it with
Right.
permitting, with
Sure.
the environmental permitting we have to do with
Right.
the bridge replacement, and then the bidding process. You're looking at roughly a month and a half after you advertise, and then construction outlined at 180 to 220 days. So there's some assumptions in there, but yeah, roughly 65 weeks from those proceed. So you're looking at about 2 more inspections happening in between now and it happening if we push play today.
Okay. Well, that's one of the oldest bridges we have around. It's also one that a lot of people don't even realize we have a bridge there.
Most people don't even know
Don't know it's a bridge.
Yeah.
It's not, what, a 50-foot long, maybe?
Yeah.
Not very long at all. Yeah.
That's a big old culvert going through there.
Yeah, it is.
I remember that as a kid.
Huh?
By a motorcycle shop.
Yeah. Any other questions or anyone like to make a motion?
I'm going to move, the staff recommendation is to hire CEC.
Yeah, staff recommendation is to award the contract to them, yes, sir.
So we have a motion and a second. The guy that used to crawl through that, I guess. All righty, so motion and second.
Yeah, my motion was to approve staff recommendation.
It's all righty. We'll call the question. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, sir. All righty. Item 14. Consider bids Whitaker Street Rehabilitation Project number 20 SHAWWHITTST open. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so you guys are probably familiar with this. This is the rebid of the Whitaker Street project that we originally bid this project in March, but decided to go ahead and rebid it due to some inconsistencies in the bid. In this go around, we received 4 bids for Whitaker Street, and just to jog your memory a little bit, this is a full reconstruction project. We're adding sidewalk to one side of it, new HDPE water line. For the complete extent of the project, it spans from Draper to Center on Whitaker Street, right there around the elementary school. And also, I would mention there was a third addendum issued late on Friday that was not originally included in the online packet. This addendum was basically just a house cleaning item. It deleted some old legacy notes that may have caused some confusion in the bid. We had some questions about it, so we went ahead and issued that out late Friday. I've included a copy, or we've included a copy of that on the desk for all of you tonight, but for the most part, it was just a delete of a note. I think we gave press that as well. So with that, I would read the bids. We received a base bid from Rudy Construction Company in the amount of $625,810. Alternate number 1 was for $30,000, and alternate number 2 was for $10,000. We received a base bid from ATEC Paving in the amount of $618,603.75. Alternate number 1 was $49,800, and alternate number 2 was $15,000. We received a base bid from Wynn Construction Company in the amount of $565,405. Alternate number 1 was $18,600, and alternate number 2 was $14,000. And finally, we received a base bid from Nash Construction Company in the amount of $585,430. Alternate number 1 was $8,250, and alternate number 2 was $12,650. So,
Excuse my memory. Would you remind us what those two alternates are?
yes, sir. So alternate number 1. So we changed. You might remember originally we had the base bid, and then we had 2 material options for the water line, and then we had 2 alternates in the previous bid. So this rebid, we removed the material options, and we have it as base bid number 1. So that removed a little bit of confusion. But the 2 alternates in this bid, alternate number 1 is basically for flashing school crossing signs that you would see right there around the elementary school. A couple of those signs, and then alternate number 2 is for quality control, for the contractor to provide their own quality control, and that's like concrete cylinders that are broken, or another example would be like the nuclear gauge compaction testing and the subgrade and stuff like that.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
So I would answer any other questions you guys have, but staff's recommendation would be deferment to a future meeting so we can review the bids.
Alternate number 2 does not show a great deal of variance, but alternate number 1 sure does.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Signs?
Yeah.
Yeah, everywhere from 8,200 to almost 50,000.
Say one of those is wrong.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
It's way off.
Yeah.
The others are pretty consistent, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so your recommendation would be that you would like us to defer this
Defer
to
for a future meeting so we can review the bids and check references if necessary.
Okay. All right, thank you, sir.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion by Mark and a second by Darren to defer to a future meeting. We'll call the question. That passes 7-0. Acknowledge, item 415 is acknowledge monthly sales tax and budget report. And Ashley's going to come up and give us really good news up here.
So yes, I do. I have good news. I'm very excited about this. Okay, so sales tax was phenomenal. We are currently sitting year to date at 11.38% above budget and 8.47% above prior year actuals. Use tax actually also came in well. I was pleased with that since we've been running a little bit under budget year to date for that. It came in 23.55% over budget for the month, which actually pushed us into the positive year to date. So we're now sitting at 1.03% above budget year to date for use tax as well. And we're also 6.64% above prior year actuals. So budget-wise, we're doing okay. Revenues are supporting expenditures. We haven't had any freak snowstorms the past month. So other than that, we've been doing well. But I'm more than happy to take any questions you may have.
Got any questions? As busy as every place I've been in lately, I'm not surprised these are up because places have been packed.
I have a question, but I don't know if it's something that could be how we could track it or if it was even possible. But just thinking about the neighboring community dollars spent in Shawnee versus our own residents. That'd be, if that ever could happen, that'd be, I think that'd be a conversation that would be worth talking about, because I know that some of the steps that we are intentionally taking as a city are to prevent that Midwest city or, even further on to OKC traffic. And I think we're doing that, but it would, if ever were a way to kind of talk about, are we keeping our own folks, or are we gathering some of the smaller communities that are making that stop? And if so, how do we continue to do that, so. I don't know, this is just a question, just a thought out loud.
I know
It'd be interesting.
I know at the mall, they get everybody's zip code, and they're able to tell you very well that, we have a big trade area that goes all the way to Arkansas across I-40 and then all the way down the southeast part of the state.
But on the tax.
So they track it that way, but I don't know how we
Oh,
do
correct,
that
on the
there.
tax reports,
Yeah,
no,
I mean,
we
there's no
do
way to
not
track
have.
Yeah.
That would probably have to be some sort of study, would be my guess.
Right.
Where we'd have to go in and probably maybe survey habits, or we might be able to possibly use some tourism data, but that I do not know off the top of my head.
We'd probably have to do like what the mall does, they ask you for your zip code. They get everybody to do that.
If I may, someone may know a little bit of that answer. Tim, could I ask you
There we go.
if you know that answer?
Yes, I can. There's a statistic known as trade pull factor. If everybody who lived in Shawnee traded here, our trade pull factor would be 1.0. Our trade pull factor is the largest in the state of Oklahoma at 2.07, meaning double the amount of people who live in Shawnee. On average, that equates to 37% of our sales tax that we collect is collected from residents who do not live here, which is a good thing. We want to try to increase that if at all possible. As Ashley mentioned, you can't track the sales tax. You simply can't do it. Part of that's against the rules and regulations to be able to do that, because I try all the time to get the information, and I'm not able to get it.
Right.
But one of our goals is to stop the leakage, what you're describing as leakage to somewhere else.
Yes.
And one of the ways we do that is we track new retailers that we don't have here. Because we have a pretty good idea of who's leaving our community to go shop somewhere else. And Travis, if it's of interest, we have a retail analysis about 3 years old, maybe a little bit newer than that, on what we call primary and secondary trade areas are. We know who's shopping here, don't always know who's shopping somewhere else. That's the toughest one to track, and I don't think our dear neighbors to the west will share that information. That helps.
Thank you.
It
Thank
does.
you.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Anybody got any other questions for Ashley? Thank you very much. Keep bringing good news.
I know.
Alrighty, so we will recess from the city commission meeting, and we will go to the, let's see, I think we got the airport authority next. So item 1 is, you guys found that, okay? I kind of figured a curveball there. Item 1 is the consent agenda.
On airport?
Yes, sir. Airport.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll second.
And Travis. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. And passes 6-4 and 1 abstention. All righty. Any new business?
No new business.
No new business. So we are adjourned from the airport authority. We move on to the municipal authority. We have the consent agenda is item 1.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. And that passes 6-4 and 1 abstention. So we go to item 2, consider and take action with respect to a resolution of the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority approving and authorizing a drinking water SRF loan from Oklahoma Water Resources Board at a total aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $20,625,000, approving the issuance of a promissory note in the total aggregate principal of not to exceed $20,625,000 secured by a pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of a loan agreement for the drinking water SRF loan, designating a local trustee, and approving the authorizing the execution of a trust agreement, approving and authorizing the execution of a security agreement ratifying, confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, approving various covenants, approving and authorizing payment of fees and expenses, and containing other provisions related thereto. And Mr. Ashley coming up.
You're up. Step with me
Alrighty.
again.
Okay, so this is financing for the upgrades to our water treatment plant.
Right.
It is it's going to go before the Oklahoma Water Resources Board on Tuesday. So this is just kind of our part of that.
Right.
It will be no more than the 20 million. 20.6 million that was mentioned, but our bids did come in lower, and so we're expecting it to be to be less than that. If we close by June, the interest rate should be no more than 1.98%, and we should close by then. And other than that, if you have specific questions about how we're improving the water plant, I will be deferring to Brad. But if you have other questions about the finances, we also have some individuals here from the Public Law Finance Group and
Right.
Bank of Oklahoma as well, if you have any other questions.
Okay. Got some questions? Absolutely. Come on up.
Alan Brooks of the Public Finance Law Group.
How are you, sir?
We do, I'm doing fine, thank you,
Good.
Mayor.
Good to see you again.
Our sizing is, I think, firm at this point. We circulated this number to Department of Environmental Quality, the Water Board, your engineers. I think your staff's looked at. So our sizing is 17,460,000. The resolutions you had in your packet had a blank for that number, so that's the number that would be in there. If we close by June 1, as Ashley indicated, the Water Board has given us an interest rate fixed of 1.98%. If it's after June 1, we're asking you to approve an interest rate not to exceed 2.5%. But at this point, we do not anticipate it taking any longer than June 1. The DEQ's reviewing documents that your engineer has provided relative to this financing. So the dollar amount, principal amount alone is tacked down at this point, and assuming we can close by June 1, so it's the interest rate.
Okay.
And those are the blanks that will be filled in the graphs you had in your packet.
Yes, sir. Got any questions for Ashley or Mr. Brooks while we have them here? I know we've talked about this quite a bit.
Yeah. Excited to get started.
No joke.
I know Brad is.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I'm excited about the project too. I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
This may be for the front table. Ashley, you mentioned someone from Bank of Oklahoma was here. Is any of the financing with Bank of Oklahoma? Only reason I ask, my wife is employed by Bank of Oklahoma, and if I need to abstain, I'm happy to abstain so that we don't mess up the financing. I support, I mean,
Right,
I
right.
just
We
want
understand.
to make sure
The
that,
financing is being provided by the Oklahoma Water Resources Board
okay.
as the lender.
So, City Attorney, are you satisfied that I'm okay voting on this?
I mean, if the financing is not through Bank of
Okay.
Oklahoma, then I don't see the conflict.
Commissioner Matthews, the application was prepared in part by Mr. Gander with BOK. He's been a financial consultant for us for a long period of time. So
I just want to make sure everybody's good and that me voting on it doesn't mess up closing by June 1st.
We appreciate that. Any other questions? Let's see, did we have a motion? Did we make-
Motion that we
Mark, you ready?
financing.
I'll second.
Mark and Darren. All righty, so we have a motion and a
Yes.
second.
And
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Mayor?
That's a long one, too.
It is long. I was going to try to jump in before.
There you go.
Okay. A resolution of the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority, approving and authorizing a drinking water SRF loan from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in the total aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $20,625,000, approving the issuance of a promissory note in the total aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $20,625,000, secured by a pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of a loan agreement for drinking water SRF loan, designating a local trustee and approving and authorizing the execution of a trust agreement, approving and authorizing the execution of a security agreement, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, approving various covenants, approving and authorizing payment of fees and expenses, and containing other provisions relating thereto.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, so we have a motion and a second, and we will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. All righty, item 3, consider and take action with respect to a resolution of the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority, replacing and superseding resolution number SMA 2020-04 dated December 7, 2020, and approving and authorizing a clean water SRF loan from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in the total aggregate amount of $13,500,000, approving this issuance of a promissory note in the total aggregate principal amount of $13,500,000 secured by a pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of a loan agreement for a clean water SRF loan, designating a local trustee, and approving and authorizing the execution of a trust agreement, approving and authorizing the execution of a security agreement, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, approving various covenants, approving and authorizing payment of fees and expenses, and containing other provisions relating thereto. Alrighty, so Ashley up again.
Okay, so as you may recall, we approved additional funding for the wastewater treatment plant of $12 million in December of 2020. An opportunity opened up to get an additional $1.5 million that will allow us to do improvements to the West Watkins Inlet that is having silt buildup issues. The OWRB is offering us the ability to add this $1.5 million to that $12 million with an adjustment in interest rate, so it'll actually be a wash. So our interest rate will go low enough that the additional principal, like the amount we'll be expending, will be the same.
Right.
So we're just asking to basically do away with the old and re-enter into this resolution. That was really bad wording, but hopefully you can understand what I meant. But I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Take that deal all the time.
Yeah. Anybody got any questions? Oh, good. Anybody down there?
Good.
We're good? All righty, you must have explained it really well.
Yes.
Yes, it worked.
All righty. So, how about a motion?
I move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
I think that was Travis.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All righty. So you're up. I'm not going to get you this time.
Thank you, Mayor. A resolution of the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority, replacing and superseding resolution number SMA 2020-04 dated December 7, 2020, and approving and authorizing a clean water SRF loan from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board in the total aggregate principal amount of $13,500,000, approving the issuance of a promissory note in the total aggregate principal amount of $13,500,000, secured by a pledge of revenues and authorizing its execution, approving and authorizing the execution of a loan agreement for clean water SRF loan, designating a local trustee and approving and authorizing the execution of a trust agreement, approving and authorizing the execution of a security agreement, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, approving various covenants, approving and authorizing payment of fees and expenses, and containing other provisions relating thereto.
Thank you, ma'am. All righty, we have a motion and a second. We will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 4, consider bids water system improvement, DWSRF, project number P40-1020504-03. And Brad is up.
So on May 3rd, we received 5 bids for the water plant construction project. With Downing Contracting being the low bid at a total bid of $14,594,000. Project engineers, Hub Engineering, and city staff reviewed all bids, check references, and recommend that we award the bid to Downing Contracting in the amount of $14,594,000.
Okay. Good. Questions? Right down there?
I'll make a motion that we award the contract in that amount.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to follow staff recommendation and award the bid. And that passes 7-0. All righty. Any new business?
Mayor, new business.
All righty, so we are adjourned and we will go back to, find the right tab here, we'll go back to City Commission meeting to item 16. Consider and take action with respect to a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, the city approving action taken by the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of its drinking water SRF promissory note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, whereby the city leased its water and sanitary sewer systems to the authority and containing other provisions related thereto. So,
Mr. Mayor,
yes,
Commissioners,
sir.
this is just acknowledgement by the Commission for item 2 and the action taken related to the item in the Shawnee Municipal Authority agenda. So this is related to the
Yes, sir.
$20.625 million note with the OWRB.
Right. Any questions for Chance or anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
All right, thank you, sir. We have a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so Darren, I think I heard you. So you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, the city, approving action taken by the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority, authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of its drinking water SRF promissory note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, whereby the city leased its water and sanitary sewer systems to the authority and containing other provisions related thereto.
Thank you, ma'am. All righty, we have a motion and a second. We'll call the question. And that item passes 7-0. All righty, to item 17, consider and take action with respect to a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, the city, replacing and superseding resolution number 6623 dated December 7, 2020, and approving action taken by the City Municipal Authority, the authority authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of its clean water SRF promissory note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, whereby the city leased its water and sanitary sewer systems to the authority and containing other provisions related thereto. So,
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, again, this is acknowledgement of item 3 from the Shawnee Municipal Authority agenda of the city related to the December 7, 2020 amended note.
I'd like to make a motion on that.
I'll make a motion. We move to accept.
Sir?
I'll second.
Daniel. All right, you're up again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Shawnee, Oklahoma, the city, replacing and superseding resolution number 6623 dated December 7th, 2020, and approving action taken by the Shawnee Municipal Authority, the authority, authorizing issuance, sale, and delivery of its clean water SRF promissory note to the Oklahoma Water Resources Board, ratifying and confirming a lease agreement and operation and maintenance contract as amended, whereby the city leased its water and sanitary sewer systems to the authority and containing other provisions related thereto.
Thank you, ma'am. All righty, we have a motion and a second. We will call the question. And that motion passes 7-0. So we are up to new business, item 18.
Mr. Mayor, no new business.
Thank you, sir. Daniel, you want to start down your end with Commissioner's
Sure.
comments?
First of all, I want to acknowledge our Public Works Department, and as we celebrate them this week, and we've seen in the last few months how absolutely critical they are to our city and our well-being. And so thanks to Brad, all of his guys and girls for all they do. I certainly appreciate that and want to honor them. Also want to say congratulations to all the high school graduates that'll be graduating this week. In fact, Shawnee happening right now. I've been kind of watching the weather, and it looks like it's held off for them. And not just Shawnee, but all of the surrounding communities as they do graduations and get to celebrate those kids and their great accomplishments. I think a lot of what we do up here is to make this a better community that hopefully has the business and commerce and the jobs and the things to do that attract a bunch of those kids to stay here and raise their families here just like we have. And hopefully we see that. And to that, I wanted to mention one thing. We had what I thought was a great event in the last week. We had the APT Tour out for a professional golf tournament. And great to see golfers from OSU, OU. And maybe I'm a little sad the guy from OSU won instead of a guy from OU, but that's, maybe for another day. But just a quick comment, because I've received a couple of calls. Those kind of events are the things that raise the profile of our community. And I think when we have those great events, and I know the mayor was out there for the trophy presentation, and I think we need to do a better job as a city of really promoting those and jumping on board. And I've received a couple calls hoping that in the future we can maybe be a more active participant in the promotion of that event, because when people say, well, there's nothing to do, we had professional golfers, the same tour that Bubba Watson came from, if you know golf, here, and a lot of people didn't know it, and we have, that shouldn't be the case, but hopefully in the future we can work on that. So I want to celebrate Health Week. Really big deal to get to do it this year after missing it last year. Thankful for all the organizations that are working together to make that a great week for our entire community. I have upped my health insurance ahead of the kickball game. That will be interesting. But also want to make note of, make sure everybody knows to register to get to hear Terry White speak on mental health, which is, I think, a huge deal for so many, and especially coming out of the last year when we've been isolated from one another. I think that's a really important topic for us to talk about. And, we had some really good conversation tonight about those that are struggling to find a home at the current time. And hopefully we can continue to work on that. I'm thankful for the mayor and his leadership on the public transit issue. And I know there are many people in the room who are working to make that happen, because there are a lot of people that could better their lives if there was a little bit more access to transportation. And there's a lot of really good people working on that. And just lastly, because I think I'm over my time, I'm over my 3 minutes. Commissioner Salter and I aren't having a best dress competition tonight. This is just a personal note. There was a family in our church in this community that had a tragedy, and Commissioner Salter was so kind and caring today as he worked the memorial service. And so, as a personal note, Commissioner, thank you for your kindness and compassion to so many in the community, but seeing it an example today, I'm thankful for you, my friend, and prayers for that family.
Let me couple on the commissioner's comment. The other big event we had over the weekend were state softball tournaments, and that brought in a lot of people, and our restaurants really suffered. They thrived, but they suffered. We're still looking for employees, so public out there, any of us, there's people looking for jobs. I'm probably people up here looking for employees, but that's a good thing. It's good to, hopefully we'll get folks back to work, but it's good to be bringing them in and having those crowded problems. And I don't apologize to you, members, but I will say I don't mean to appear argumentative in so many comments that I make, but I feel really passionate. I came back on this commission because I really wanted to make a difference. I love this town. I've been here for 67 years, and you all love it too, because that's why you're here. But we have problems, we have issues. I believe we need to address those, and I think there's sometimes some hurt feelings up here when you all don't agree with my positions. But I'm going to fight them passionate as long as I'm here, and I'm going to work to try to get them resolved, because I want to see fairness. I want people treated right, and the way that I want to be treated, and the way you want to be treated. And on a positive note, Brad, I got to just tell you, I want to respond to the citizens of Ward 2 at Shawnee Lake, who can now understand. I've tried to tell them that we've been without a bulldozer for multiple months. We've been without gravel, we've been without grading, and the people are impatient, but it's around the corner. Tonight we took action, we purchased that bulldozer that we needed. We've got gravel that's coming. Hopefully this rain will end, and we're going to make a big difference out there. And Brad and his crew have really been wonderful, and they're really patient at listening to the complaints, not just from me, but from the citizens that we serve in this town. So I appreciate you. I appreciate fellow commissioners for us seeing the need to make that purchase, and that's part of Shawnee just as well. And it's one of the hardest parts to take care of, but we're working on it, and appreciate all the efforts that are being made. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
I too want to just say that there's a lot of good things going in this part of the world, and we've got a lot of amazing families, a lot of people that are working really, really hard to try and to make a big difference. And we have some tough things that we have to discuss and talk about. I am so much in favor of the street venues and the parklets and all that stuff. I think it'd be amazing, but I am also very much in favor of us making sure that we're having conversations with our vendors and our business owners. And I think we made a good step today in walking towards something good, but then also taking just a little bit of a pause to make sure that we're going the right direction. Regarding that, I think that sometimes when we do have something that we're extremely passionate about, or sometimes when we have something that we're concerned about, or we're afraid of, or we don't understand, that it comes out in ways that we want to continue, but we also don't want to damage. And I appreciate Commissioner saying that he wants to fight, but he also wants to know that he's for us and for this town. And all that to say, I sense Miss Blaine's frustration sometimes in bringing stuff to us, and the fact that it might not be the hard work and the intentionality that she put in it might be overshadowed by so many of the questions, and I believe that she brought up in her comments the ability to have open discussions and being willing to do that, and I was there today for that very reason, because there were things, and I sat in her office for about 45 minutes, and I believe that there are other ways to do that, to where as a commission and as a city we might have some of these bigger important topics that we can look at and as a city kind of acknowledge before we move quickly into, and I just would like to further that discussion, Mr. Mayor, and the ability to not slow down the process, because I know there's so many things that need to happen, and they need to happen quickly, and we have a great staff that makes that happen, but also know that there have been times whenever myself included, I mean, wow, that was a lot, and I wish we'd had more time to discuss that and get more input. And I know that individuals working on it, and I know that everybody working here, if they're going to put the effort into creating the project, want as many people to be behind it and understand it and believe in it, because I think that's how we as a city continue to do awesome, amazing things. And so I think that should be a discussion soon, so that we can continue to allow our amazing folks that are working so hard to bring us good things, and then also be able to fully believe in them, because we've had enough time to listen and hear what they have to say. Seth, on the Whitaker Street light, I for one is somebody who's works at that school quite a bit and sees kiddos walking around there. It's not my money to spend, but I think that should be an important part of that purchase. And I know that you're going to be working on these bids, and when we look at that, I think that the lowest bidder on that might not be the best, and you know that. I'm just saying that out loud for the benefit of the fact that something that's going to protect our kiddos is going to be something worth spending money on. What else? I had something else. Oh, I am the homeless conversation and the dilapidated properties conversation and all those things. I've had conversations with the mayor and with our city manager and with our planner and with the amazing new head of our new homeless coalition. And I think that, like I was saying earlier, we've got a long way to go, but we're being intentional and we're stepping the right direction. And I have no doubt that with the people on this commission and the people that we currently have serving as our staff, that we have so many amazing things that we're just right on the cusp of really taking off and doing good things. And I think that you're right. There are things that have kind of gotten lax and things that we've kind of let go just because we didn't know what to do. And I think the first part of regaining that is being taken right now. And I think we're really trying to be intentional about not just moving people, but really loving on them and helping to secure those properties and those places and those things. And we've got some good stuff going, guys. I've been part of a lot of it, and I'm really excited to see what we can do soon. So that's all I got.
Very good. Thank you, sir. You're up.
Travis brought up the streeteries. That started out started the Parklet program a few years ago, and now we have this. You think of a modern, thriving downtown area. That's what I picture. Are those? That's an attraction. I hope we can work with everyone downtown to make it to their satisfaction that we can put this in place. However it needs to be arranged. It's a nice looking downtown that will keep people here. It's one more reason to not go anywhere else when we can go sit outside on a patio at more than one place. This will give us multiple places downtown. So, and anything we can do to keep people here, which also that ties back to the question you asked. Tim Berg, Shawnee Forward answered that was an amazing number. I didn't realize that number. What did he say? 2.07 or something. That's huge for us, and we need to keep that and make that grow. That's fantastic. I assumed that he would have that, so that's why I pitched it over to him, Travis. That's all I got.
Yeah, y'all went over about everything. Police station's about done. That's exciting. Rebecca's worked a bunch on all these new subdivisions going in. We've got 2 or 3, and I don't really feel like the stuff is sprung to us like, some of the commissioners kind of feel. We have adequate time to look at the stuff. The Parklet, we voted on it a couple of years ago. Neat idea with COVID. We hadn't utilized it. I think we just kind of let it sit down there, which is probably, got to be an eyesore for probably some of the business owners, just, because it hadn't been used. But all in all, I think, with everything we got going on, new water treatment plant, which I know Brad's worked really hard on that, and the engineering's worked hard on, Whitaker Street, 45th, Kickapoo. We got a lot going on. We ought to be thankful. And then, we have the revenue to support it, which is the big factor. So Ashley, we appreciate what you do too.
You're up, man.
Well, I agree with everything that the commissioners have said, and just to emphasize that, if we have policies and procedures, we need to be fair in forwarding all of that. And they're really working hard on 45th Street. There's always someone out there surveying, measuring, marking the street. So that's coming right down the pike. So that's it.
All right, thank you, sir. You guys have covered a lot, so I'm not going to cover a whole lot. A lot of good things tonight. And Whitaker Street, Public Works, the recognition of you guys. I mean, you guys do so much for us, and I know you probably feel sometimes like taken for granted, just because, we a lot of times just, maybe don't, we just don't pat you on the back enough, but we want to take that opportunity tonight to do that. I mean, you guys and the rest of the staff, I mean, you guys are always available. If I have a question or, shoot someone an email or a call, you guys are really good at getting back in touch with us and making yourself available, and that's really appreciated. Water and the sewer projects, I mean, that's probably not the sexiest projects in the world, but let me tell you, if they don't work, that's not a lot of fun. So it's really good to see that stuff moving forward. That old bridge on Main Street that a lot of people don't even realize is there. I mean, I'm glad we're moving forward on that. Health Week, really cool thing coming up in town. So hopefully people will get involved in that. The homeless thing has come up a bunch as we talked about that one property. We are just starting on this, but we are collecting so much good information that I really think we're going to be able to attack this differently than we have in the past. I mean, I've always kind of said that in the past we've just kind of played whack-a-mole and you chase them out of one location and they're just going to show up somewhere else. I mean, that just doesn't work. So I know we've gone out and Travis and Rebecca, you guys went personally into encampments and into abandoned buildings, into places that a lot of us, wouldn't want to go, and interviewed these folks to find out, why you're in the situation that you're in. And, knowing that, we're going to be able to arm ourselves with good information, make decisions on, how do we make this situation a whole lot better. So I think Lauren is probably wanting to do an update with us in the next month or so after he gets all that information compiled. So I'm looking forward to hearing that. I don't know that I've got anything else. Oh, one other thing, which really ought to be obvious, and not one person said a word about it so far. The 7 of us are sitting up here without a mask on tonight. So CDC gave guidance last week that if you've had your vaccinations, you're fully vaccinated, then you're safe basically anywhere you go. 7 of us have had our vaccinations, as we're showing everybody, and would encourage everybody to go out and do the same thing, because we all voted to do this, but it wasn't because it was fun. But we're rounding the corner, the lights at the end of the tunnel, and everybody go get your vaccinations, and let's get back to doing what we used to do. So with that, let's adjourn and go home. Thank you guys for all your discussion.
Thank you guys.